Hello, welcome to this new BMC Helix Remedyforce webinar. Let's wait 2 more minutes so other people can join. Okay, so let's start with the webinar. My name is Jay Ramos, and today we're going to review how to import, export, and update records using Data Loader. So the agenda for today, we will see what is Data Loader, then we will review a business case scenario, and then based on that business case, we will proceed to perform the task using Data Loader. So what is Data Loader? Data Loader is a client application for the bulk import or export of data. It is being used to update, delete, or export Salesforce records. When importing data, Data Loader reads, extracts, and loads data from comma-separated values uh, or from database connection. When exporting data, it outputs on CSV files. So now let's review the business case scenario. The Director of Support Services for Acme Corporation is concerned about the current categories in the org. He realized that some categories needs to be updated. He also needs to add new categories. So he requests to the BMC Helix Remedyforce administrator to update more than 100 categories and add 50 new more categories. So, so now based on this, if you look at this task, it will be a time-consuming task if you do it manually. You need to go to each category and update one by one, or you need to create one by one all those new 50 categories. Fortunately, we have Data Loader, which is going to make that so much easier. So now let's go ahead and perform the task. If you have any questions while I'm doing this task using Data Loader, you can put your questions on the chat and we will answer those questions. Ramiro is going to help us um, with the chat, so if you have any question, just put in there. So first, this is Data Loader. If you have any questions of how to install Data Loader, we already have a video on our YouTube channel of how you can install Data Loader. Ramiro is going to put the link on the chat right now. So, as you can see here in Data Loader, we have different options. One of them is insert, update, observe, delete, export, and export all. Export all basically will export all the objects that you have and all the objects and all the records from your org into CSV files. We won't use this option yet, I just want to let you know what is that option. So the first thing we are going to do is we will create an export. So first in your org, let's go to the Remedyforce administration. We will export all the categories that we currently have in our org. So here on search settings, let's go to categories. And here we can see all the current categories that I have in my stock org. Okay, and the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to export all those categories using data loader. So let's open data loader. Let's click on export. And here you can check which environment you want to log in. We can use production or sandbox. In this case, I'm going to use production. Let's click login. And it will ask you for your Salesforce credentials. So let's sign in. Let's click allow after you put your credentials. And now we can click next. Here you will see the list of all the objects, the custom objects and also Salesforce objects that you have in your org. In this case, we are going to export categories. So let's go and find the category object. Here it is. Here you can select the name of the file. In this case, I'm gonna select categories. And it is extremely important that you keep the format .csv. If you don't keep that format, it won't work. And let's put a location for this file. Let's click next. And here you can select which fields from that object you can select to be added on the file. In this case, I'm going to select all fields because I want to get all the information from those categories. And after you select the fields that you need, you can click finish. And let's click yes. And as you can see, currently I have 140 categories in my org. All of them were successfully extracted and with 0 errors. In case we see an error here, it will tell us which is the error that we are getting for that specific record. So let's click view extraction, and here we will have a quick view of all the records with all the information from all the fields that belong to the category object. So let's open it on an external program. It automatically opened the file in Excel. So let's wait for it to open. Okay, and this is the file. So as you can see here, we can see the ID of the record, the name of the category, and some other fields like created date, the abbreviation of the category. So for example, if we go here and select one category, in this case, let me just check the Excel file, and let's open this one, operating system Linux, and here's the category. So for example, for operating system Linux, we will see the abbreviation is OS, and as you can see, it's OS. Basically, we are bringing all the information that belongs to this record on the CSV file. So one of the tasks that we will do is update the current categories that we have. So in this case, just for testing purposes, we will update just one category, but you can modify this Excel file as you need. So for example, if you want to rename a category, if you want to modify if can be applied for incident service requests or tasks, you can also do that on this Excel using this Excel file. So in this case, just for testing purposes, we will rename this category. So instead of being Linux, let's put Windows. So here there are two things that we can do. We can create a completely new Excel file, or we can use the same one. In this case, we are going to use the same Excel file to update this specific category. So if we go back to data loader, let's close the export. We have different options here. So for example, one of them is Obsert. If we use Obsert, basically what it does is it will check the file that we are going to submit. It will compare the ID of the record. If it already exists, it will check if some of this information has changed. If if it is changed, it will update the record in Salesforce. If the record doesn't exist at all, if it is a new category, it will create the category. Then we have update. An update, it will compare the ID. If the ID already exists in Salesforce, it will check if some of the field values changes. It will update those values. In this case, we are going to use just update, and then we will do insert to insert new categories. So first, let's go and click update. Sorry, I forget to save this file just to save the change that we just did. So now let's go back to data loader. Let's select the object again, which is going to be category. Then we will select the file that we just download and modify it. Categories, let's click open. Just keep in mind that, and also check if it has the correct format, which is .csv. Let's click next. It is telling us that the file contains 140 records, which is correct. So let's click OK. And here you will see all the columns that are on the Excel file right here. The list of all these columns. And we need to map those fields with the fields in Salesforce. So let's click on create or edit map. A good functionality about this is that we have auto match field with columns. So basically it will do the job for us, and it automatically matches the field in Salesforce with the column on the Excel file. So we can save this mapping for future reference if you are going to work um, often with categories. You can save the mapping, but in this case I won't save it. I will just click OK. You can see that all the fields are mapped right here, and then let's click next. Here we need to find a directory where the log is gonna be saved. In this case I just put it on my desktop. Let's click finish. Let's proceed. Okay, let's wait for it to finish. Okay, there were 140 successful updates and 0 errors. So we can click view success and also open in Excel if you want. But in this case, let's go directly to Salesforce and see if that category is updated. Let's refresh the page. Let's go to categories. And as you can see, this is the one that was updated, operating system Windows. So it changed from Linux to Windows. You can also modify any other category that you want, any other value that you see here. You can modify it and do the update, and data loader will change that on Salesforce. So that's how you can update a record using data loader. So for the next task is to create a few more categories. So in order to create a category, we will need to validate a couple of things. So for example, when you create a new category manually in the system, you need to check if you have required fields or any validation rule that can be triggered once you insert a new record. It applies for all the objects in Salesforce. So for example, let's say that you want to work with users, that you want to create users using data loader. You need to check which are the required fields in order to create a new user, and also if you have validation rules when you are creating a new user. So here on categories, if I open a new category and I just click save, it will display validation rules or required fields that we can have. So in this case we have please enter category. So let's enter the category name, which is test1, and let's click save just to see if we have any other required fields or validation rule that can be triggered when we are creating a new category. Let's click save. Okay, the record has been successfully created. So as we can see here, the only required field is the name. Additionally, we can add an abbreviation, a category type, a parent category, and select one of these checkboxes. So if we want to create a new category, the only field that we need is name. Additionally, we can take any other of these columns. In this case, the ID, we cannot select the ID because the ID is going to be automatically generated after we create the category. The ID in Salesforce is a unique identifier for that specific record. So all the records in Salesforce have a unique ID. So for this case, we are going to create a new file. And let's bring the information that we need. In this case, we just need the name. Because that's the only required field and we don't have any validation rule when creating a new category. So let's put test 2, test 3, test 4. Let's save this file. Save as desktop. New categories. And remember to keep the format comma delimited CSV. If not, it won't work. Save. And now we have the document here. So now let's go to data loader and let's do an insert. Let's select the category object and let's find the new file that we just created, which is new categories. Let's click next. It is telling us that it contains 2 records, which is correct. And now let's create or edit map. Auto match field with columns. Okay, it matches name with name. Let's click next and finish. So there were 3 successful insert and 0 errors. So if we go back to the org, let's refresh and let's validate that those 3 categories were successfully created. Okay, so let's find test. As you can see, this is the manual category that we created, and you can see test 2, test 3, test 4 that we do it through data loader. On data loader, so for example, let's say that let's analyze another category that we have here in the org, so we can review how we can read the export file that we exported first. So for example, let's say that we can select BlackBerry. So in BlackBerry, you can see that it applies to incidents, task, problem, change request, release, broadcast. And it is also displayed in self-service. And the parent category is mobile devices. So let's go and find this category on the export file that we exported at the beginning of the webinar. So let's do Control F. Okay, here is BlackBerry. As you can see, this is the ID of that specific record. This one right here. And if we navigate a little bit more through the Excel file, we can see different fields. For example, let's expand the windows a little bit more. So you can see all the values for all the fields that belong to the category object. And we can add those when we are trying to create new records. So in this case, the parent category, so let's say that you want to add a parent category to a record. So you can see that for BlackBerry, it is mobile devices. Let's confirm that on Salesforce. Okay, mobile devices. Let's say that we are creating new categories and we want to add a parent category. Let's take a mobile devices just to get an example. So for mobile devices parent category, let's go to the Excel file, do Control F and type parent, find all. So the first value is the FK parent category ID. So let's take this one, this field. Let's go to the file that we created. Let's put the column value here. Let's check what else we need. So let's go to the file, next. And also the ID for mobile devices is this one right here. And how we can confirm that, if we go to Salesforce, let's open a new tab. We can copy the ID on the URL just to check the value that belongs to that ID. And that's correct, it belongs to mobile devices. So let's go back to the Excel file and let's put the ID here, which belongs to mobile devices. In this case, we're going to create a new category, which is going to be mobile test 1. Let's check which other field we need in order to add a parent category. So we need the parent category ID, which is the name of the category. So we already have the ID, but we also need the name. Which is mobile devices. Let's copy the value. Let's see if we need any other value for this. Okay. And parent 3. And which the value is the same one. than the parent category. Let's save the file. And for this case, we're going to create a new category. The name is going to be mobile test 1, and it is going to have a parent category which is mobile devices. So right now, let's go to the org and confirm that that one doesn't exist. So if we go to categories and let's type mobile. Oh, sorry. So we only have mobile devices, mobile phone requests, BlackBerry, and iPhone 4. So now, once that we save the new Excel file, let's go to data loader. Let's do another insert, categories. Let's select the file again, new categories, next. It contained one record, which is okay. Create or edit map. Let's use the auto match field to columns. Let's click OK. Next. Finish. Okay, there were one successful insert. Let's click OK. And let's review in Salesforce if the new category has been added. Let's go to categories. Let's search for mobile again. Okay, as you can see here, it was successfully added. Mobile test 1. The parent category is mobile devices and the parent tree is mobile devices, just as we set up on the Excel file. So now we already cover how we can export, update, and insert a record. We will also check how we can delete records in Salesforce. So let's say that you accidentally created more than 100 categories and you need to delete all of them. In order to delete a record in Salesforce, the only thing that you need is the ID, the unique identifier in order to delete that specific record. So in this case, let's delete operating system Windows and applications. Or let's do this. Let's delete what we did. Let's do pretty quick another export. It will also help us to refresh this step. Let's select category. Select all fields. Finish. Yes. Okay, now I have 145 records. Let's view all extraction. Open in Excel. And here is the new list. Okay, as you can see here, these are the tests that we created. So let's delete those using data loader. So let me remove all these records from the list. Okay, so we only have these 4 records that we created today. Let's click save. Let's go to data loader. Let's click delete. Select the category object. And let's search for the file. Okay, I don't see it here. Let me just save it on the desktop. Okay, now it's here. And as I mentioned, the only field that we need to delete a record in Salesforce is the ID. So it will automatically match the ID, and that's the only field that it would match. As you can see, the ID with the ID in Salesforce. Let's click OK, next, and finish. Okay, there were 4 successful deletes. So now let's go to the org and confirm if those records were deleted. So let's refresh. Let's go to categories. Let's search for test. Okay, as you can see, test 1, 2, and 3, and 4 were deleted. So now we review all the available options in Data Loader. Data Loader is a powerful tool that can help you for reporting purposes, audits, updates, inserts. So for example, let's do an export on incidents, which is the most common incident that you will work on Data Loader. Or the CMDB. On CMDB, we use Data Loader a lot just to import CMDB records. And I'm going to show you another pretty good tip on Data Loader. So incidents. Let's click save. Remember, so for example, this is a common issue. We missed the format. If we try to create this file, it will give us an error saying that we are not in the correct format. So let's add manually.csv. Let's click next. Here, let's say that we want to export all the incidents that we have in our org, but just open tickets. So let's select all fields, and here we can add a conditional. For example, BMC Service Desk state operation equals true. It will bring all the open tickets that we have in the org. So let's click add condition, and we can confirm that at the bottom of the string, which is where BMC state equals true. Let's click finish. Yes. So there were 20 successful extractions, which means that I only have 20 open tickets right now in my org. Let's click view extraction, open in Excel. And here's the list of the open tickets that I have in my org. So you can see the ticket number and also other information like the staff, the category, and all the information that you can see on a ticket with all the columns, all the values. Okay. Let me click here to close it. Okay, so now we fully review how you can use Data Loader. As you can see, it's a powerful tool. We can do this with any Salesforce object. Let's say if you are working with users, with urgencies, with CMDB, you can also import CMDB records using data loader. You can create users, you can modify users. So for example, let's say that you have already 1000 users in your org, and the integration that import those users didn't put the location correctly. So you can use data loader to correct that issue. You can export the list of all the users, modify the location, and just do an update, and it will update all the users locations using the loader in just a couple of steps instead of going manually one one user one by one user in order to perform the action. So right now, do you have any questions or comments about data loader and how to use it? As I mentioned, you can take the video that we created in order to install data loader. It will take you just 10 minutes. If you have any question, just put it on the chat. Okay, if there are no more questions, if you have any issue or question about data loader, you can submit a case with us. It could be via the web app, phone, and also just to probably you already know, but you can also submit cases through chat if you have the option on the Remedyforce administration. If you don't have the option to submit cases through the chat, you can submit a case so we can fix that for you. Thanks for watching and attending to this new BMC Helix Remedyforce webinar. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you.